I bought this land to escape the noise, to build a life where the only rules were the ones I respected, the seasons, the soil, and the quiet. But one summer morning, all of that changed. A woman I barely knew stood on my porch, demanding I hand over my property for her daughter's wedding. She said she had the law on her side. She said I had no choice. What she didn't know, neither did I. This is Karen, an HOA board member, a neighbor, and the person who'd spend months trying to take what was mine. This isn't just a story about land. It's about what happens when someone decides your life is theirs to control, when the people meant to protect your community become the threat. Before we go further, tell me where you're watching from. Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever faced someone who thought they could walk all over you, stick around. This one's for you. You know, I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd end up in an HOA drama. I'm Kelvin, a homeowner, a rancher, and, if you ask anyone who knows me, someone who values privacy and the law above all else. I grew up believing that if you mind your business and respect your neighbors, life will be good. There's a certain peace in working the land. Out here, the only deadlines are the ones nature sets. My family and I built a life on this patch of earth. Early mornings, honest work, and the kind of quiet you can't buy in the city. But when we moved to this community, I knew there was an HOA. I figured, how bad could it be? They keep up the park, organize the block party, maybe send a letter if your grass gets too long. I never imagined the HOA would become the source of my biggest challenge. Let me introduce you to Karen. She was the HOA board member everyone warned me about, always watching, always ready to enforce her own version of the rules. You know the type. Clipboard in hand, eyes sharp as tacks, smile that never quite reaches her eyes. At first, I thought, she's just passionate. Every community needs someone who cares. But then came the little comments. Oh, that's a lovely open field you have. Wouldn't it be perfect for a community event? Or, we're always looking for new spaces for the HOA garden. You should really consider sharing. I'd laugh it off, thinking she was just making conversation. But the hints kept coming, each time, a little more direct. Then, one morning, everything changed. I was out fixing a section of fence when I heard voices. Lots of them. I rounded the corner, and there they were. Karen and a group of people walking my land with measuring tapes, clipboards, and a kind of confidence that made my skin crawl. I walked up, trying to keep my tone light. Morning, folks. Can I help you with something? Karen barely looked up. Oh, we're just finalizing plans for my daughter's wedding. The HOA board voted to use this space. It's perfect, so rustic. I blinked. My land? I didn't agree to any wedding. She smiled, waving a thick folder. We have documentation. This area is now designated as community green space. She actually handed me a stack of papers, HOA letters, maps with my property outlined in highlighter, and even a mock-up of the wedding layout. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to laugh. Karen, I own this land. It's not part of the HOA's common areas. I have the deed if you'd like to see it. She bristled, lips tight. Well, we've already told the neighbors. The invitations are going out this week. I looked around. Some of the people with her were my actual neighbors, people I'd shared coffee with, waved to every morning. They wouldn't meet my eyes. That was just the beginning. Karen started telling everyone I'd agreed to host the wedding. He's just being shy about it, she'd say. He wants to be a good neighbor. Suddenly, I was getting emails from the HOA about event logistics, flyers in my mailbox about parking arrangements, even a sign-up sheet for volunteers to help decorate the farm venue. It was like I'd stepped into an alternate universe. People I barely knew were planning a party on my property, and I was the only one who hadn't RSVP'd. I tried to be reasonable. I sent emails. I called the HOA office. I even invited Karen over to show her the survey markers and the deed. She refused, insisting her documents took precedence. Then the rumors started. He's being difficult. He promised to let us use the land. He's just trying to ruin Karen's daughter's big day. It felt like the whole neighborhood was turning against me, all because I wanted to keep what was legally mine. I realized I couldn't handle this alone. I called my cousine, a lawyer. She nearly choked on her coffee when I told her what was happening. They can't just take your land, she said, but you need to document everything, every conversation, every email, every flyer. So I did. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. It was about standing up for my rights, for my family, for the principle that you can't just bully someone out of what they own. And, as I'd soon learn, Karen wasn't about to back down. If anything, she was just getting started. You'd think after the first time Karen would get the message, but no. She came back, this time with reinforcements. I looked out my window one afternoon and saw a parade of people marching up my drive, clipboards, walkie-talkies, and a giant map with my property circled in red marker. It looked like a military operation, not a wedding plan. She didn't even bother with pleasantries. "We need you to vacate the property for the wedding," she said, as if she was asking me to move my car, not my home. "If you don't, we'll have no choice but to take legal action. The HOA has voted. This is happening." I almost laughed, almost. But the look in her eyes told me she was dead serious. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I documented everything. Photos of trampled flower beds, broken fences, every single trespass. I kept a log of every encounter, every email, every flyer. My cousin, the lawyer, found it hilarious at first. "You're kidding," she said, laughing. "She actually threatened to evict you from your own land?" But she assured me, "The law's on your side. Just keep collecting evidence." So I sent Karen and the HOA a formal cease and desist letter certified mail, return receipt, the whole 9 yards. I copied every board member, attached pictures, emails, and a copy of my deed. I was done playing nice. I added an emergency item to the next HOA meeting agenda: unauthorized representation of HOA authority and misuse of private property rights. Karen tried to have it removed, but the bylaws were clear. Any homeowner could add agenda items with 48 hours' notice. When the meeting started, Karen launched into her speech, but I cut her off. "There was never any agreement," I said. "I have the records to prove it." Some neighbors looked shocked, others looked away. That's when Karen decided to up the ante. She called the sheriff. Karen filed a complaint, claiming I was illegally occupying community land and needed to be evicted for the wedding. The sheriff listened patiently, then turned to me. I handed over my deed, the property survey, and a USB drive with security footage of Karen's trespassing. The deputy took his time, flipping through the documents, then looked at Karen. "Ma'am, this is private property. You have no authority here. If you or anyone else steps foot on this land without permission, you'll be charged with trespassing." Karen's face turned red. She sputtered, but the sheriff wasn't having it. "This is your final warning," he said. "Do not come back here." But Karen wasn't finished. She tried to use the adjacent land, pressuring her family and friends to keep the wedding plans alive. She spread rumors, said I was being unreasonable, that I'd promised to host the wedding and then changed my mind. Some neighbors believed her. Others started to see the truth. I called the sheriff again. This time, I didn't wait for things to get out of hand. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up. The deputies approached Karen, who tried to argue, waving her fake documents. The sheriff shut her down. "You've been warned. Everyone needs to leave now." As guests started to arrive, they were turned away by uniformed officers. Some looked confused, others embarrassed. Karen's daughter, in her wedding dress, burst into tears. The tent crew packed up. The wedding was over before it began. That night I changed every lock and updated my security codes. I filed for a restraining order against Karen harassment, trespassing, making false statements. The judge granted it. The next week, I pressed charges against every person who'd stepped onto my land for the wedding setup. Was it harsh? Maybe. But I needed to send a message. This goes beyond overreach, I told the board. This is fraud, misrepresentation, and a blatant abuse of power. If Karen can do this to me, whose home will be next? The room was silent. The impact was immediate. Karen's reputation was shattered. Her family was mortified. The board had no choice but to act. I never wanted a fight. But sometimes you have to stand up, not just for yourself, but for everyone who believes in fairness and the rule of law. And as I watched the sun set that evening, I knew I'd done the right thing, even if it cost me a few friends, even if it meant a few sleepless nights. When the dust finally settled, the neighborhood was a different place. The sheriff's warning wasn't just a threat. Formal charges were filed against Karen for trespassing. I remember the day the papers were served. It was strangely quiet. No more HOA flyers in my mailbox. No more friendly visits from Karen. She kept her distance, and so did most of her supporters. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. This time, the room was packed. People who'd never attended before showed up, eager to see what would happen next. The board reviewed all the evidence, my security footage, the emails, the statements from vendors and guests. It was all there, in black and white. Karen had overstepped, lied, and manipulated. The vote was unanimous. She was removed from the board, effective immediately. Neighbor, I never realized how far things had gone. I just thought Karen was being, well, Karen. I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. The HOA didn't stop there. They rewrote the bylaws, making it clear that no one, not even a board member, could claim private property for community use without written consent and a public vote. They added new rules about transparency, communication, and respect for homeowners' rights. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Some neighbors came by to apologize. They brought cookies, casseroles, and even helped me fix the fence Karen's crew had trampled. Others kept their distance, embarrassed or maybe just unsure how to face me after everything that happened. But the atmosphere changed. There was a new respect for boundaries, for the law, and for each other. I took extra steps to protect my home. New locks, new cameras, and a big, bold, private property, no trespassing sign at every entrance. I wasn't taking any chances. But I also felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. The land was mine again, and everyone knew it. This ordeal tested my patience and my resolve. There were nights I couldn't sleep, days when I wondered if it was worth it. But it reminded me that standing up for what's right is never easy, but it's always necessary. If I'd given in, if I'd let Karen have her way, who knows what would have happened next? Maybe the next neighbor would have lost their garden or their home or their peace. I learned the importance of knowing your rights, of documenting everything, of never being afraid to seek legal counsel, and of trusting your gut, because sometimes being a good neighbor means saying no when it matters most. And I learned that even when people disappoint you, there are always those who will stand by your side. My family, my cousin, a few brave neighbors. They reminded me that community isn't about control. It's about respect. Karen thought she could bend the rules for her own benefit, but in the end, justice and the law prevailed. My land is still my land, and my story is proof that you don't have to be loud to be strong. You just have to stand your ground. If you're watching this, and you're facing something similar, know this. You're not alone. Stand up for what's right. Know your rights. And never, ever let anyone take away what you've worked so hard to build. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to live through, and it wasn't easy to share. But I know there are so many people out there who have faced something similar. Maybe not with a wedding, maybe not with an HOA, but with someone who thought their wants were more important than your rights. I want to leave you with a few things I wish I'd known from the start. First, know your rights as a homeowner. Read your deed. Understand your HOA bylaws. If something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts and get it in writing. Documentation is your best friend. Take photos, save emails, write down every conversation. You never know when you'll need it. If you ever find yourself in a situation where someone, HOA or not, is trying to take advantage of you, don't be afraid to seek legal advice. And if you're dealing with HOA overreach, remember, you have a voice. Attend meetings, ask questions, demand transparency. The rules are there to protect everyone, not just the people in charge. I'd love to hear your stories, too. Have you ever faced a situation where your rights were challenged? Did you have to stand up to a neighbor, an HOA, or even your own family? Share your experiences in the comments below or tag me on social media. Let's build a community where we support each other, learn from each other, and make sure no one has to go through this alone. Communities thrive on respect, not control. We all want to belong, to feel safe, to know that our hard work and our homes are valued. If you ever find yourself facing injustice, remember, you're not alone and the truth is on your side. Stand tall, speak up, and don't let anyone take away what you've built. Thank you for watching, for supporting, and for believing in fairness. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Together, we can make our communities stronger, one honest story at a time.